I am for making your own choices and making sure that the reason why you're doing things is coming from within, that you have a strong structure of self-validation and one that is not rooted in your body or appearance. It's rooted in the things that your personal value is more than that.
Hi, you're listening to Good is in the Details. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Dolske, and joining me today is Rudy Salo. He's the lawyer who shows up and talks about transportation.
I do. Yeah. Good afternoon. I do speak more than just transportation, but that topic actually will come up during this discussion today.
We're ready for it.
You should introduce our guest, and I'll bring it right in.
Okay. And our guest is actress. You've seen her on Border Patrol, comedian, podcaster, and we're going to be talking a lot about her latest podcast, Hot Pizza Ass, Erin Darling Torralva. Thank you
so much.
Erin's a lot of things, and I'm super excited about this. I've been following your podcast. I've been following you. But the one thing apparently that you're not is a religious public transportation user. Do you want to talk? Talk to us about that?
Yeah,
what happened today?
Okay, well, what happened today is I clicked on the link in the email to come here to where we're recording the podcast, and Google Maps took me to a completely different address that was also in downtown LA, but kind of like in a different district, 20 minutes away from where I was actually supposed to be. So I was 20 minutes late to get here, and of course, I listened to this podcast, and I know that Rudy loves public transit, and I was like, why didn't I just take the train from where I live since it is so easy? So
here's what I'm going to offer to you.
Yes,
what I offer to
me.
everybody out in the world. Should you ever need to ask the question, should I take the train or should I drive? Here's where I need to go. You can reach out directly to me, and I will be honest with you. I won't always tell you to take the train. Yes. Okay. I will tell you where you need to go in all of Los Angeles or even outside of Los Angeles, because we have the metro system, but there's the Amtraks and all kinds of things.
Well, then I do have a question.
Excellent.
Okay, Beverly Hills, like Rodeo Drive. If you're going there, that is a difficult area for public transportation, but there are buses.
There are buses. From downtown Los Angeles, there's like the bus rapid transit, which will take you down all of Wilshire, like from downtown LA all the way to like Santa Monica. That's probably your best way because they can actually control the signal lights. Beverly Hills is hard to get to on purpose. Beverly Hills, as a city, stopped the expansion of the subway back in the 80s.
Why did they do that?
And actually, Beverly Hills High School right now is currently trying to stop or at least have the train move around Beverly Hills High School. Beverly Hills is what it is. It's always going to be like that little empire that's going to be hard to get in, whether you try to get there by a car or whether you try to actually buy a house there. Other than Beverly Hills, I could probably get you to someplace via a train or a bus. But Beverly Hills, I think, does allow the scooters. I don't know if maybe they don't.
I don't think they do anymore.
They did for a little while, and then they got rid of them because Beverly Hills doesn't want anybody inside of Beverly Hills. So I can't help you there.
All right.
Yeah. See, I'm not perfect, Gwen.
The transit whisperer.
Yeah, the transit whisperer. I whisper into the voices of people in the little trains to get you places.
It's good to know these things, though, because a lot of people are very ignorant about public transportation in Los Angeles and what the options are. I know very few people that own a car and take it. It's either you have to do it because you do not have a car, or you're just, no, I'm just going to drive. Yeah. And then you just don't even deal with it.
It's a mindset shift.
Right.
Like I still have a car because I have kids and I got to shuffle the kids around, move the kids around. Someday I will not have a car for sure. I'm definitely going to go that route, even though here's where I'm a crazy person. My favorite vacation, road trips. Can you imagine that? That makes no sense whatsoever.
But you don't have to deal with traffic.
Oh my gosh.
You're right, because you're out on the open road. It's therapeutic.
I do miss when I lived in Belgium for a while, and public transportation was all I did, and I miss that. That was nice. But Rudy, we have to talk about beauty. This is our second episode about beauty.
We are. This is, but here's the connection. Here's the connection.
You go for it.
You want to know one of the benefits that you get from public transportation? Walking.
Oh,
and
yes.
It's an easy way to stay in shape. You know, most people, if you want to have a long life and not have some joint problems later on in life, choose walking instead of running. And so the train is a part of that. So there you go.
And stay off the phone while you're walking.
Yes, that safety is all important. But there now I just connected it to beauty.
You're awesome.
Good.
I try.
This is why
I know this is why you have me around every once in a while.
Connected.
Okay, just for our audience, what inspired you with the hot pizza ass? That's, your first episode where you were talking about delving into beauty and self-image. Because we should just say off the bat, you're absolutely stunning. And so it was interesting to hear this very raw and open account of what it is like to be in the entertainment industry and be told this is what you are supposed to look like. Right. And to not fit that, or to take great pains to try and fit it and be unhappy.
Yeah, I mean, that was my life for a really long time. I started the podcast. I mean, I feel like I've been walking toward this podcast probably my whole life. But when I really decided to launch it a couple months ago, I had posted an image of myself, and I am laying on a bed. I'm wearing a piece of pizza on my butt. And I thought about posting this image. I had it for like a month and a half before I actually posted it. And when I did, I accompanied it with a caption that was about, accepting my body and like loving it for what it is, and changing, like, as it changes from day to day, from month to month, to year, deciding to love it. And to me, I don't want to say this is brave, because I feel like that's kind of like self-aggrandizing, but like it was brave for me in the moment to post that image, because I knew there was a big possibility I would just get roasted for it, especially being a comedian. And being a comedian who other people have decided is cute, I like know that that's always like something, it's like, do I cover this up? Do I just be me? How am I being judged? Am I going to be taken seriously? And these are all things I think about on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women do. And for me, as someone that has a history of eating disorders, I had bulimia, even showing my body sometimes is like very scary to me. But I do it, and I have done it, and it's part of my profession.
To show your body? To be visible.
Right. Or to be asked to.
I want to ask, what is it like? How are you made aware of what the standards are? Is it you go out on an audition, or who is feeding you this information, and what do they say, and how do they say it?
I have a really good story for you.
I'm ready.
That kind of encapsulates what we're talking about. So one of my first commercial agents, I go into her office. This is a woman. And she sits me down. She wants to talk about what my goals are. She looks at my pictures. You're very photogenic. Like, you could have a great career. I can help get you there, and I specialize in building people's careers. But you need to be okay with nudity, or I will not sign you, because that is how a young woman in Hollywood builds her career.
What year was this?
This was only like 3 years ago.
Wow.
And I said yes, thinking in my mind, okay, I'm really not comfortable with nudity unless this is like a Martin Scorsese film, or like, even if it was like a small role in something big or meaningful or artistic. But in general, I'm not going to be topless in like a B asylum film or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not... that's not worth it for me. So I said yes, and I signed with this person, knowing that at any point in time I could get dropped by my agent, because if that opportunity really did come my way, I was going to say no.
Yeah.
But like, that's just kind of like a perfect example of the kind of stuff, or the situations that you're in where you feel, you realize, okay, so my body is a commodity. It's something that I am expected now to use so that I can get where I want to get.
Right.
And I'm not comfortable with that.
And let's just say some of your talents that have nothing to do with body would be journalism major, comedian, also podcaster. But when you think about it, all of these things, they don't require a body size in order to accomplish. And yet somebody is still coming in and saying, this is the body that needs to accompany this. But it's really only for women.
Right, exactly. And I've literally been told over and over again that I could be more successful. I could have a better career. I could win Miss California or whatever, if I got my body right. And then it raises the question, well, what is right and what is wrong? Like, how is this wrong? Like, I'm what, maybe like a size like 6? Like, is that too big? Is that too big for this industry? Is that too big in general? What kind of judgment are we making on people? And if I'm too big and I'm just like a normal girl, then what about someone that's one size up?
Yeah. That's what I think about. I think about with young women, how much energy and effort is put into the size of their body as opposed to the health of their body, and how much that detracts from then sitting down and writing quality work or participating in the world. That sometimes I wonder these things are a pushback, so that the more successful you are, then somebody will keep you in check with your body size. That's like the one negative power I think people still have over women, is it doesn't matter where you are, they can say something about your body, and that will immediately cause an asymmetry of power.
Right.
What bothers me is that women do this to other women.
Yes.
Rudy,
yes.
I see you're thinking about it.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. As a father of a 3.5-year-old, little girl, my wife and I talk about this a lot, about what's the world going to be like when she's going to be older. And the reality is, I mean, Instagram and social media, some of the people that have the most followers take off the most clothes is something that I've, come to learn. And that
women, is it women or men?
Women and men.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen, men tend to be like on the funnier side. And then some of the other like super top Instagram people, in the Kardashian level or the other level, they're not wearing a lot of clothes. And it's what I'm trying to say is, does this kind of transcend just Hollywood? Is it just society as a whole wanting to see more naked women, and that's why they're following them on Instagram? Or is it, I don't think it's limiting it just to the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole world is set up this way.
I think it's
I
still
agree.
just saying that a woman's worth, still part of what her worth is, has to do with her body. And we had talked about this before with Dr. T, is this idea that there's a moral claim that's attached to it. So when a woman is in shape, she's also good. That's part of it. And if she puts on weight, then she somehow let herself go, that there's a moral claim to it, that she's not taking care of herself.
Right. Did you guys see that I posted this on Instagram? I just posted something on Instagram yesterday because I was hanging out with a group of friends of mine, and we were
I did see
that. I'm
that.
showing them an image right now that has been face tuned of me and how much they can change someone's body on Instagram. And you swipe through, and I found by doing research that there are apps targeted at young women called Body Tune, Make Me Slim, Perfect Waist, Reshape, like implying exactly the things that you're saying. To be perfect, you have to be small. Like Body Tune, like Perfect Me is a smaller version of you. And these are marketed toward young women. This is so unhealthy that this is the awful marketing that they are on the receiving end of.
So did you get an aha moment where you're saying, I'm going to love my body the way it is?
Yeah.
Okay, what was that? Was it the pizza or no?
That was the moment where
that
I
was
was,
okay.
because I realized I had that image for, like I said, a month and a half before I got the courage up to post it. And I was like, well, why am I feeling like this? I think I want to post it. I took the photo to post it, but what is it inside of me that is hesitating? Like, what am I'm judging myself for it? Like, I don't feel like maybe I'm not good enough to post it, or maybe I'm afraid of how I will be perceived. And I just realized that a lot of this is just bullshit, and a lot of it's conditioning, and it's the fears that I have about how society will view me, even though I am a creative and I'm in a pretty free field. I could do something like this and it's not necessarily going to hurt my career, but I had so much judgment and fear about it that was my moment where I was like, you know what, I'm going to post it. I'm just going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you've gotten some positive responses to it, and it's worked out well. On one of the episodes that you did on your podcast with Donna D'Erico, when I was listening to what she went through when she was on Baywatch, and how the world and what the weight of women and the curves have shifted over the years.
Right.
Her impression was it's a lot better now than it was in the late 80s and 90s, and I personally would tend to agree with that, because I was never really into the skinny flat butt type of a look. Like, I just wasn't. I mean, I just never thought that that's what normal women look like in general.
It's true.
But so what I'm asking is, and I wanted to ask you this right during the episode. I wanted to say, well, okay, what does Erin think? Do you think it's better now than it was when you two were in high school, or you two were in college, or are things just as bad as far as what is beautiful? I'd like your opinions.
I think so, because I think that we've become more accepting, and we have better role models or examples of role models in society that stand for these things that might have been on the outskirts a couple years ago. Like now we have runway models that maybe have I've seen models that have a fake leg, and now that's being exposed and we're seeing it in media. Or people that we would normally consider them to be like disfigured or handicapped, and they are becoming faces of brands. Even social media, as toxic as it can be, has uplifted certain people to the point where now we're being exposed to images of beauty that aren't just determined by a modeling agency or Louis Vuitton or whatever brand,
That's the duality here.
Yep.
That's where I know the danger of social media, right? I think it does bring feelings of jealousy, like, oh my gosh, I don't have what that person has. Look how much fun that person's having on Facebook. My life sucks compared to that person. Yet the way other people look, which is not just the skinny girls from the 1980s anymore, they now have a platform to show off their bodies as they are. So there is that duality of the positive and the negative of social media. So here's a question. Here's a philosophical question.
I'm ready.
Is the positive outweigh the negative? I know. See how difficult that was, Professor?
I think that what remains is that the woman's body, voluptuous or rail thin, or remember the heroin chic from the 90s?
I really hated that.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I thought it was disgusting. I still think it's disgusting.
It still exists for male consumption. There are a lot of women, and you're right, there's been this diversity because it went from, just the standard essentially being white to having more diversity in the field of what constitutes beauty. I still think that it still exists as for the gaze of the other. And like when we see women who are empowered, they often have to be beautiful. So we don't see pictures of the CEO women who are not stunning or gorgeous or anything like that. Like there's still this standard that has to be there.
Right. No, I totally see what you're saying.
So I'll ask a really quick question on this, because I kind of see this, I think about this a little bit with men too, because I'm absolutely obsessed with hair. Okay, I will do.
You have great hair.
You have
I
lovely
work
hair.
my ass off for my. I'm serious. I work my ass off for my hair, and so I mean, believe me, we can go on for a long time about my own, with my own personal issues with beauty and everything. But my focus on going to a personal trainer and getting in health is I'm 42. I got super young kids. It's on health. But there is that balance between health versus beauty. Like, where is that line? I'm curious.
Well, I think what Erin showed with what is it called? Facetune?
Yeah, well, that was the app that
Okay.
I had discovered because I use photo editing stuff, but I use different ones that is kind of more focused on filters, or it can put makeup on you. I had no idea that with Facetune, I was aware it could fix certain things with someone's face, but I didn't know you could change your boob size or slim your waist. And the other one I found, I forget what it's called, and we shouldn't even advertise it because it's awful, but yeah, those apps scare me.
Well, here's a real repercussion. So younger people are more likely to send sexy nude images of themselves to each other, but they don't want to be naked in front of each other.
And they might be doctored as well.
Exactly.
They might be
So
they
you
might
can-
be they might be doctoring fake photos and sending those for whatever unhealthy reasons
So
behind
people
that.
are not relating to each other because being nude in front of somebody is that vulnerability. You don't look like that, but there's a real repercussion to it where people are not connecting with each other.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was in school, we had social media, but it wasn't like no one was sending nudes to each other. That wasn't a thing yet. And so I can't imagine, what that would feel like.
I'm working on a stand-up act right now that is the epidemic of the dick pic. Like people are honestly on. This is true. This is where public transportation and dick pics and social media stuff is coming together. Somebody told me a story.
Public transportation.
Yeah. Somebody
Okay.
told me the story. They were on a train recently in Los Angeles, and whatever, they had their Bluetooth thing on, and somebody tried to send a dick pic to the person that was inside of the
God.
subway train. There's something going on.
Someone tried to airdrop it?
Yeah, someone tried to airdrop a dick pic. There is an epidemic out there that goes just beyond people not having sex.
This is what I'm saying is that technology outpaces existing laws. So that's probably not illegal. Because there's no law saying that you can't do that.
Well, isn't that harassment?
But now we would have to add that.
It's a great question. Harassment
Somebody's
is a
gonna
civil.
have to write that in the law.
Civilly, yeah, probably. There is probably.
Someone's gonna have to sit there and be like,
I'm
by
telling
the
you,
way,
we're gonna have
no airdropping.
we have to have dick
pics.
pic law. I'm telling you, it's going to be a part of my stand-up act. We can work on it together. But there's a dick pic epidemic.
So someone's
Gwen.
going to have to run for office I'm
that
gonna be
platform.
The one.
Oh my god, I will vote for them. I
But
will.
that's what's happening these days.
Yeah.
The photos and this is that other side of the social media and the smartphones, the negative side of it. You know, so does the positive outweigh the negative? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm curious, what kind of a response did you get? I mean, did young women reach out to you, or how do people respond to the images and just being open about this vulnerability about body size and how you're supposed to look?
You know, it was so weird. There were a lot of different things that happened when I posted that photo. One of the things that happened is I lost a lot of followers.
Really?
That one day I tracked it because at that time I was really focused on my Instagram growth. So I was really tracking my analytics and looking at what happened that day. And I was curious to see what would happen when I posted it. And I lost at least 100 followers that specific day.
Wow.
I archived that photo 3 times. I felt shame. I felt maybe this was a bad choice. Maybe this is not representative of what I want to be. Even though the message was good, I felt like maybe the image overpowered anything that I could possibly say with it, even though it wasn't really that scandalous. But you know, it's just it's that perception. And then I wasn't courageous enough to stand by it. I took it down 3 times. I had family members talk about it. When I finally got the courage to read the comments, I saw a lot of women responded to it in a very positive way. So, and I don't know what type of followers I lost, if they were male or female, or like what age demo they fell into.
It could have been the wives of husbands that were following you, like they did the unfollow you because they were like, hey, this is way too good. This guy should not be watching this. I don't know. I have no idea.
But it's also funny. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's also funny because
It's hilarious.
You have this nude body and
there's a
slice of pizza on the
an
butt.
ass.
Yeah, like
and it took me a long time to get the pun. That's how not smart I am. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I didn't because
it's
the
all
pizza
that Catholic
looked
school
by the way,
upbringing.
The pizza looked hot, so it was like a fresh pizza too. So you know what I mean?
That
You had to just set it up.
I had to. That was good. Come on.
That's great.
I couldn't make you laugh the last time.
I mean, the image was, I think I took it almost a year ago. Like, it's December now, and I posted it, I think it was February. So there were just like a lot of things having like a lot of layers to it, I guess. And ultimately, when I did read the comments, there were a lot of people that said, I relate to this. I have felt the same way about my body, you know, and people that took the time to read the caption understood what I was doing. And then, of course, there was the dudes that responded to it, which immediately, you know, sexualize the image of the pizza and the butt and me all together. So the response was all over the place. But I knew, because it was so complicated and because the way that I felt about it, which was also all over the place, that there was something there that I needed to uncover and unpack. And I knew I had a lot to say about the issue. So
that's what brings me to the next question. So you've got this launch of this podcast about self-love. And what have you learned so far? You're what, 11 episodes in, or a dozen episodes?
10. I think today I did episode 10.
Okay. So what are you learning from this process?
Well, what I'm learning is that everyone has a story. And I am so surprised of the people who have reached out to me to say that they want to do the podcast. I'm surprised at how many men have said that they have felt like this. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. And I honestly cannot believe how vulnerable people are willing to get on this platform, you know, to join this movement, to talk about self-acceptance and discovery, and choosing to love yourself instead of hate yourself or judge yourself. So that's what I've learned. It's been really beautiful, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel better about people coming in and wanting to share their stories, because their stories, they're coming from people that other people look up to.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, like Jeff Garland felt that he, you know, he's judged his body. He's really successful, you know, and it's Donna D'Erico's on Baywatch, a very beautiful person. You know, she almost got fired because she gained a few pounds. Like, what? You know, now that people know these things, I think that it's good for other people to hear these stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's exhausting. Maybe this is part of the social media thing. It's exhausting to try to be like everyone else. And it just kills creativity.
Yeah.
Because all of that time and trying to fit in, it just kills it. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking? I see a look on your face.
I was raising my hand because
Okay.
I would love to talk on that podcast, yet I did something about my body dysmorphia. I got a nose job when I was 15.
Yeah, I listened to that episode where you talked about that.
I did, yeah.
And honestly, can I say when I heard you, when you were telling that story so openly, when you had the plastic surgeon on the podcast, I was like, wow, that's awesome at how honest you were just willing to be. Like, you just put it all out there instantly.
Yeah, it was. And I have mixed feelings about it. You know, like I've had I know I was being honest because that was so much of a part of my youth. And I really do believe that I needed to get it done for health reasons. That's for sure. I had a deviated septum. I couldn't breathe. But I did feel so much of a different person like after it. And a lot of people do go to plastic surgeons. And I'm not against, some plastic surgery. Like there are some people out there, women that have had their breasts removed from cancer surgery. And there's many, many reasons why you would go to a plastic surgeon, right? So once again, it's that balance of, like, hey, accept who you are, but if there's something that you want to get done and it's not crazy and you don't become addicted to plastic surgery, yeah, fine, go do that too. It's your life, So it's so hard for me to difficult. I mean, I'm sure you could probably like hear the struggle in my voice because I did do something about it. Yet I totally get people should accept who they are. Maybe if it was 2019 and I was 15 years old and being an Arab American in the United States was much more acceptable than when it was in the 1980s and 1990s, maybe I wouldn't have gotten it done. Maybe I would have been okay. Maybe looking different, which is much more acceptable today than it was back then. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. I don't know. I'm 42 now. I'm not 15, but I'm trying to like put myself into that. It's times are different. Times are better.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but I do think we as a society are moving in the right direction. Some aspects of our society. There's many aspects of our society that I've got a big problem with. I don't want to get political on this, but the reality is I do think we are getting better. I think that shows like yours and you talking about beauty and the different aspects of it are really, really important to help young people accept who they are. And this wasn't around when we were younger. So we're lucky to have this.
That's so true.
Just before we started recording, I was telling Erin about how it really, really hit me when Katie Hill, the congresswoman, do you remember the freshman congresswoman, her ex leaked naked photos of her? And all I could think about was how commenting on a woman's body or nude photos is a way to police the woman's body to keep her in check when it comes to power. And it worked because she resigned. It made me think of Marcia Clark in the middle of the OJ trial when there were leaked photos of her. It was a way to keep her in check. Vanessa Williams, the first American, or first African American, like naked photos. It's like, no, that these photos are a way to police to say if a woman has any kind of a power, in order to restore an asymmetry of power is to comment on her body. That's something that's just
so
hit
true,
me.
Yeah. And how that can be like weaponized against them, even though they were sent in a private capacity,
and it was
possibly
illegal.
to someone that they loved,
Yeah.
And trusted. It's something sad that happened to me recently is that I have a Google alert on my name, and I got a Google alert from some forum with my name in it, and I have a Patreon that helps support my podcast. As part of the Patreon, I do photo sets every month in themes of the podcast. I don't do nudes, but some of them are a little bit like artistic or scandalous in some capacities, but like it's nothing crazy. But I saw that someone put something out about me asking, Erin has a Patreon, if anyone gets access to these photos, like asking them to leak them. And post them on the forum. And I would never post anything that I wouldn't stand by, like I'm in a bathtub eating noodles, like it's fine. But that was so hurtful to see that was out there, that someone, these are people that are choosing to support my podcast, and I'm hoping that they're there for the right reasons.
Right. So your journalism degree, how does that present itself in what you're doing now or in any of your creative work?
Yeah, it does because, I mean, weirdly enough, I was forced to do stuff in journalism school that I didn't want to do at the time because I wanted to just focus on being on camera. I wanted to learn how to report things or how to, I guess, talk articulately. I wasn't focused on learning how to edit content. I wasn't focused on editing audio. But these are both things that I do, weirdly enough, for my podcast. These are skills that I had to have.
So with that, would you recommend, because you do have a lot of students that listen to your podcast, and there was one of your podcasts that I listened to, and I'm sorry I forgot the gentleman's name, and there was talking about what journalism was like in the 1990s versus what it's like today, and like, oh, there's no journalism jobs, there's no media jobs. Would you say that a journalism degree or studying journalism is still a good path for anybody that wants to go into content creation?
Yes,
Okay.
I totally think so. I think specifically if you can get a broadcast journalism degree, do that because, I went to USC, which is a really good school for that required me to learn all of the areas, including writing for print and writing for digital, that ended up being really, really helpful for me in terms of getting other opportunities because you never know how you're going to get in to the place that you want to go. So if my goal was to be host of Entertainment Tonight or whatever, I might have to get in there as a writer first. And so whether you want to be in content creation that you own or you want to work for a company that has opportunities that you would grow into, it's so, so important and so relevant, I think, to still go to college and to learn all of like the aspects of something so you can be responsible and have the power to kind of like rise the ranks in whatever career path you have.
Can you double major in philosophy? Because Gwen and I were talking about career choices before we met today, and we're worried. We're somewhat worried about some people
I'm worried
that are
about my philosophy majors because I think that they're developing these incredible analytic skills, and I think that the university has to do a better job of how that they can navigate that in the real world afterwards. Because a lot of them say law school, but then realize how much it costs and that maybe they're saying law school because they think that's the only option. But I would imagine something like journalism also, that you're just getting an incredible skill set that finds its way in these other career paths. You had also said to talk maybe a little bit about your comedy career. So because you have a lot going on. So Border Patrol, stand-up comedy, podcasting. This isn't your first podcast.
Yeah.
And you have a lot going on. So you're a workhorse. Okay. Doing a lot. You had said that with comedy that it took a while, like you were doing the stand-up. And what kept you going? See, that's an incredible work drive. I think that that's very cool.
When you start stand-up, I always tell people, like, if younger stand-ups talk to me or ask me for advice, and I am by no means an expert in this category, I'm still considered a very young comedian. I always tell them you just have to be willing to fail for about 2 years. And when I mean fail, I mean like really suck, like stand up on stage, not get laughs, be okay with doing that for 2 years, knowing that you're going to come out on the other side being a much better comic and also having weathered that storm. So when it happens to you, you're not completely ruined. That's really hard. And most people will not do that because it requires like so much strength, so much determination. And it combines like all the things that people are afraid of the most, like public speaking and, not being a failure, and you just have to be
And in front of people.
Yep, you gotta be all right with it.
On our last episode, you remember what Jeff Hodge was saying about one of the reasons why some of these really big stars come back to do the comedy is because they get instant gratification. The opposite of instant gratification on the comedy is nobody laughing and feeling like you suck immediately.
Yep.
You gotta just be like, okay, I suck. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep going for another couple of years. I suck.
I remember I didn't even want to keep going for another couple of minutes. I remember shows that I would do early that
I'm out. See you later.
I was like, I don't have to finish this set. I can just end it. I would get up there. Yeah.
Bye.
Really?
Bye.
I would get up there and do like 3 or 4 minutes. It was not going well. And even if I had a 7-minute set, I would just be like, thank you guys. That's my time. And pretend like I got the light or something because that's how awful it felt. But that being said,
I kept going. So what is that?
I think that I just felt it was a little bit of insanity, just like a little bit of, I think, like knowing that I'm a writer, knowing that I'm a good writer and I have the capacity to write good material. And even if I was uncomfortable on stage, I knew that there was something in me. I wasn't making stuff up. I wasn't improvising. This is all stuff I actually wrote. And I knew that if it was something that was good enough to get me on a bad show, one day it could probably get me on a good show.
It's a great attitude.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's an awesome, awesome attitude.
Well, I've told my students that people who are successful, they've just failed more than you.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. In one of your episodes, you had mentioned feminist comedy. So what does that mean?
I definitely identify as a feminist, and I think that, my comedy, it comes out when I talk about certain issues. Like, for example, I do this bit about the walk of shame and how I really hate that term, and I view it as sexist. And I even did it last night at this hipster show that I told you guys that I that did not go very well. All the comics were bombing.
It was the hipsters. I'm
The
telling you, it's the
hipster
hipsters.
show.
Don't blame yourself. It was the hipsters. They're not supposed to laugh.
Yeah, I gave them some good material, man.
You probably did.
But I had this bit about the walk of shame, and someone heckled me in the middle of it, but I was able to use my punchline to kind of like direct it at them, and it ended up working to my advantage. But this whole bit that I do is about how I hate that term because I feel it's directed toward women. And sure, the argument can be made that the walk of shame is genderless. It's for men and women, but there is way more shame involved with sexuality when it comes to women. So when I tell that joke, that's where I'm coming from, and I'm like, I don't like this term. I think it's sexist. So there's certain, sometimes I get up on stage and I say like, okay, I'm a feminist. And sometimes I don't say it, but if you listen to what I'm talking about, it's all about that kind of stuff. Inequalities and, gender and sexuality and the way that we all that we look at it and the way I feel about it. So yeah, I hated it when this heckler guy was like, well, I do the walk of shame. It's like, okay, we get it. You're trying to announce you've had sex with someone recently. Great.
No,
but
no,
the
he
shame,
didn't.
what I mean? Even the
didn't.
way that he volunteered that information, I'm like, there is no shame there.
Yeah.
Like, what shame are you talking about, sir? Like, this kind of stuff infuriates me.
No, you're right.
It was probably a walk of shame because he just left from being alone. That's why he should be shameful. He had nobody to walk away from. I mean, for the hecklers.
Hi,
man.
I'm playing video games.
A hipster,
Walking away from that is a
hipster
shame.
heckler. Oh my blood's gonna boil. I don't know why. I know there might be hipsters listening to this show. I know you guys provide something to society. I'm still trying to figure out what that is.
Something.
I mean,
Hats,
you've
they have good
turned
hats.
around Silver Lake. You've turned around Los Feliz. Thank you very much. But I'm still trying to figure you all out. Next time you see her on stage, you better laugh or I'm coming after you.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you.
Well, you've also mentioned your mother's last name and
Yeah.
making it more. Is it more presence that your Mexican heritage, or
Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about that.
For sure. I mean, it's both of those things, like when I was growing up, the only people that had hyphenated or double last names were normally if your mother was like really progressive, or she identified as a feminist, or maybe if you had you were a child of divorce or some sort of separation, you had a double last name. And for me, I always took my dad's last name because he has a wonderful name. And Erin Darling is so cute and so charming, and I love it, but it also sounds fake, and it doesn't tell the whole story. I'm mixed. My mom is from Mexico. Like, I am half her, I'm more Mexican than I am all the other blend of white, Caucasian, European things that I am. So I decided to take my mom's maiden name, just add it. So I guess I did a self hyphen because that tells the whole story, and it's my version of embracing it.
As a lawyer in me, can I just ask you a really quick question?
Yeah.
Did you go through the whole driver's license and Social Security and all that rigmarole?
No, not
Okay,
yet.
okay, because
Not yet.
that's going to be a pain in the butt. But that's one of the
Is
problems.
it?
Well, it's just it goes to kind of gender identity and choosing who you want to be, and maybe you don't have the name that you want to have. There are a lot of steps that you have to go through, like when you sign up for a U.S. passport and you show up with your birth certificate and you have a different name. I mean, it's not easy. It does make things a little bit more difficult legally. Do you know?
I don't know if I'm going to change it legally. I think I'm just going to treat it like a stage name and a pen name because, that seems like a lot.
It does. It does. That was not a warning against it. That was just, hey,
And then also, if I do get married, then do I have to go through that again?
I don't think. I mean,
Why is it easier to change your name when you get married than if you just want to embrace your heritage?
Because there's a
gender
form
issue,
for
yeah.
it. Because it's a form for
Oh
it.
my gosh.
and then changing the name after, if you decide to go back, that's a headache. But yeah, you're right. To take on a man's name is nothing.
Yeah.
It's like
we could totally unpack a whole thing.
I get
here.
into so much trouble whenever I talk to, because my students kind of look at me like I'm crazy. But like the whole wedding ceremony, a Western wedding ceremony, is essentially a transfer of property that you're watching. You have the father taking her down, like she's pure, like she's untouched, but I mean, who are we kidding? And then we got him like walking down, and then he says, who takes her or who gives her away? The dad's like, I do. Who will take her? This other guy. And then you see the change in name, and it's like a transfer of property. And we say all of it, and now I'm going to get in trouble for this.
There's a great
No, I think that's so smart.
But I don't want to encourage anybody to not get, like, if they really want, I say, I don't want anyone to be like, I don't want to ruin, don't mention this if somebody's getting married. I don't want to ruin anyone's day. It's just that we actually recite the words that reflect, we say the same words, who gives her away and who takes her. And you have the transfer of the name.
There's a great Netflix series out right now. It's not called How Stuff Works, because that used to be a podcast that iHeartRadio purchased, but it's like this explains it or whatever. There was one on monogamy that basically tied marriage and the transfer of the property rights, the woman to the man and everything. They tie monogamy starting there. Like we stopped being hunter gatherers and we became these agricultural people with the transfer of the families and the connection of the families. That's the reason why monogamy was started in the first place. And then religion made it as a part of it. It was fascinating. I'd never ever heard that before, but the way that this series went into it, it's only like 20 or 30 minutes long. They cover everything in there. They cover female orgasms, they cover economics, they cover all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's very.
We never talked
I
about.
learned a lot. Believe me, after watching, I was like, oh, it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Something interesting too that kind of reminds me. I've seen parts of that series too.
You know which one? Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about like the lack of like sex education, especially when it comes to the female body. In our experience, I didn't even know menopause was a thing. Like
really?
Why? Yeah, I've never learned that in sex ed. They tell you, okay, here's what happens when you get your period. They never tell you, oh, and at one point it ends. Like it's just like that's just part of the story that we don't talk about. Just like we don't talk a lot about pregnancy.
No, we need to talk
or
about
the female orgasm. You know how a guy has an orgasm, but like we don't talk about how a girl has one.
Do you know why?
The word menopause was never spoken at Servite High School. So I'm just trying to support what she's saying. I never even heard of it.
Yeah,
that's how we know each other. I never heard that word. So she's right.
This is so I've been thinking about this. I think what it is that underscoring sex ed is the idea of reproduction. Yeah, reproduction. And so the male orgasm fits that narrative. The woman's orgasm doesn't, because that's why you don't introduce the clitoris, because that would throw off the narrative. Because it's like, here's this button that doesn't have any clear function other than pleasure. Mm-hmm. And if you introduce that, then sex all of a sudden isn't necessarily about reproducing. It could also be about pleasure, connecting with people. It could also be about fun. It could also be about getting a good night's sleep. There's lots of things. And I think that that's one of the reasons is that the description of the woman's body, it interrupts that narrative. Yeah. And nobody wants to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But
actually, you know what? That does make a lot of sense when you're at that young age. It's kind of like, okay, we just want them to know this is what happens if you do this. And if they tell us the other stuff that makes it awesome, then other people want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, don't do that yet. How old does this happen now? How old I don't know. What age are people learning about?
Well, it is from what I've heard from one of
fifth grade.
Yeah, that's about right. I've got a client who happens to be very religious. I mean, I love the guy. I mean, that's just who he is. He's a very, very religious person, and he has a problem with how young and much more detailed they are introducing it into certain public school systems here in California. According to him, he said third grade. I find that's what he told me.
Well, here's the problem. Because of the internet, if you do not talk to your kids or have somebody talk about it, they will find out about it before.
I think that's part of the reasoning behind that. I think
they
you're
find
right.
out about it before because of the internet. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So the schools or parents need to have this conversation, because it doesn't matter if it feels like it's too young. It's that that information will get to them very, very young.
Gwen, you'll find this out very soon.
I don't want to talk
I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and a book that her mother recently purchased for her and that we're reading to her now is avoiding naughty pictures.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what we're reading to. It's the bad picture book is actually what it's called. Like if anybody tries to take pictures of you or tries to show you bad pictures, run. It's at 3.5.
Oh, well, you know what? That's one of the arguments for introducing sex ed earlier is because it can alert children when something is off.
Exactly.
It's to inform them. So that's actually really cool.
Exactly.
So if someone's taking an inappropriate picture of you,
They now have the language and the understanding
that's so sad.
That's what we just did 2 weeks ago. I mean, and this book is for between girls and boys between the ages of 3 and 4.
This is so scary.
This is that coin again of the smartphones and the social media and the technological world that we're living in. There's positives, there's negatives.
Yeah.
This is a philosophy podcast. There is no answer because there's no answer in philosophy, so it's perfect. It's a perfect way to kind of tie it all
Excuse you.
in.
There are answers.
There's no answers. There are no answers. There's no such thing as answers.
No. If you say...
There's not enough time to go into this. Just agree there's no answers.
I've heard this before where somebody's like, oh, no, there's like no right answer. But then that presupposes that there's a definition of right, which is kind of like the liar's paradox.
I'm going to go jump off the building. That's it. I'm jumping off the building. You know I can do it. Right over there.
Oh my gosh.
Did you take any philosophy classes?
I took a philosophy class.
Okay.
I want to take one. Can I take one? Can I come?
Yeah,
take
can
yours?
Can she and I come and take a class with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can. You can take it to
You
where
can,
you
really?
can. Yes, you can. They're building out the gold line, which she doesn't even know how to take. By the way, that's another issue that I have with you.
I'm tired of being attacked.
Well,
on my own
take
show.
the train.
So wait, what is the liar's paradox?
If you say I am always lying.
That could be a lie.
Yeah. So to say there is no right answer already presupposes the definition of right or that would be the wrong answer. So there, Mr. Lawyer.
My head's going to explode.
Oh my gosh. Wait, as a lawyer, you're supposed to know all this stuff too, right?
No.
No?
No. What you got to know is
You guys pull some chicanery and
you got to know the gray. You got to know where there is no clear answer. That's how we get paid the big bucks. Like, it could go this way, it could go that way. The law says this, but precedent says that, and the market says this. So here's how you should balance your interests, Mr. Client person. It's not easy because being a lawyer is seriously being like being a philosophy teacher. There are no right answers.
Oh my God. Okay. Erin.
I love getting under the skin. I do. I love it.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are.
Okay, I want to see with Erin, with your projects now, where do you see this developing? Where do you see this going? Where do you see, and also what would you like to see? So you have gone through what it's like to be in the entertainment industry and this idea of what the body's supposed to be. You've talked about eating disorders. What do you hope for young women who would be listening to this? What do you want for them? And then what do you see in the future of your podcast?
Wow, that's such a heavy question. I mean,
Thank you.
what I would want for young people if they find my podcast, and I need to figure out what my demographic is currently, but I think that I would like them to have agency over their bodies and their choices. So no matter what, and this is something that I feel like I'm constantly having to explain because the body positive movement can be kind of confusing. But I'm not against Photoshop. I'm not against Facetune. I'm not against sexuality. I'm not against using your sexuality for profit. I am for making your own choices and making sure that the reason why you're doing things is coming from within, that you have a strong structure of self-validation and one that is not rooted in your body or appearance. It's rooted in the things that, your value, your personal value is more than that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want people to take away from this. Women, men, whoever listens to this podcast. And for myself, I want to create opportunities as an entertainer, that tell the stories and narratives of, women and minorities and tell them in a real way that isn't rooted in their bodies or their sexuality. Those are the stories that I want to tell, the TV shows I want to write. And hopefully I'll get that type of opportunity on a bigger platform so that what I do now on a smaller podcast level can translate to a larger audience. And I think media is really important. It's a really important facet of all of this because what we see is what we start believing.
Yeah. Who are some of your mentors when you look back and you say, oh, okay, they were doing something pretty special. They inspired me.
Wow, that's such a good question. I mean,
you.
there's so many people. But you know
You haven't given me one thank you today. Like, Rowan, you not a single thank
You provided an excellent lunch.
Thank you.
Yes, you
Thank you.
did.
Thank you.
Delicious.
Thank you very
Thank you
much. That's
so
all I get
much.
from her today. I don't know what it is.
Such a lovely location. And my parking validation. No, you know what? George Carlin. I
Okay.
love George Carlin. I loved him as a writer. I love how simple and clean his writing was as a comic. Just what an amazing career. But I also love what he became, and how he was willing to talk about things that were really, really hard and to stand up and call out society in certain ways. So, I really love him. I've been very inspired by his career for
Right.
as long as, ever since I never grew up watching George Carlin. I just knew he made a cameo in Jay and Silent Bob. Like that's all I knew. But when I started doing comedy, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. So definitely him. That's like probably my biggest inspiration. And I love Oprah, someone like Oprah who, man, against all odds at the time,
Right.
rose and became this incredible voice standing up for a lot of these stories that weren't being told, and for women and minorities and people that have been marginalized too, like their whole entire lives even. And those are the stories that she tells, as a producer and as an interviewer.
What does comedy have to offer? These questions about self-love and about being a minority.
I mean, my hope for myself is that I'm able to move in a direction where I could talk about these things more on stage, like I do at my podcast, but I realize I'm less vulnerable when I'm on stage with what I talk about. So I need to really start writing and becoming more of this person when I do stand up, because comedy has that amazing power of making bigger, difficult topics a little bit easier to listen to. And so if I can do that too, that would be incredible. It's going to take some work because, stand-up is a grind. But yeah, I think that's the power of comedy though. If we can laugh at something together and we can feel it, if you can make someone laugh and someone cry, that's a superpower.
Pillar of democracy, Gwen, just like we discussed.
Yeah.
The role of comedy, especially in our country, especially with where we are today, it is so vitally important to come at very difficult issues sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Delicately, but with some humor attached to it, so we can feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it. That's what I love about comedy.
I'm kind of obsessed with this question.
I know, and it's good. It's a good one to be
question.
obsessed with.
Because, no, I think it's just in the day of cancel culture and then also when I think about, because I had mentioned Carlin as well. He's one of my favorites. 'Cause when I think about the staying power, there's some wisdom there in the comedy. And I'm just wondering, what is the responsibility of the comedian, or what does the comedian bring to us? Culturally, because they are saying the things that you can't normally talk about in regular discourse.
Oh gosh,
but
yeah.
when you're laughing, then you have to sit back and reflect on it and what is making this funny.
Right. Here's another short entertainment story that I have. I took a meeting with someone that produces comedy specials, and they asked me what I wanted to do. And I told them that it was very important for me to wait to have this opportunity till I really know what I wanted to say, what I really wanted to use this platform to be about. And then his response to me was, well, most importantly, it should be funny. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of like, okay. Well, true, but then I don't think you understand,
Yeah.
where I'm coming from. So
Yeah, you have bigger plans,
yeah,
bigger ideas, bigger ideas.
right.
Okay.
I look forward to seeing how big you get, and honored that you came into the downtown LA, into the Nixon Peabody office, and onto Gwen's podcast, and this was a blast.
This was a blast. I agree, and thank you guys so much for having me. And I love this show, and I can't wait to hear it keeps happening with the show as well. It's so good.
Thank you so much. So how can people get in touch with you?
Instagram, Darling with 4 H's, DAHHHHLING. Twitter, Erin A. Darling. And then my podcast, Hot Pizza Ass, on Spotify and iTunes.
And then can I ask real fast about Border Patrol?
Border Patrol.
Yeah, that's
One
Border.
day I'll get stuff right on the first time. Maybe someday.
Don't.
Someday.
Don't.
Okay.
It's good.
How can people see this?
It's borderpatrolcomedy.com. It's on YouTube as well. And yeah, I think I might have, well, I don't want to say anything crazy about it yet, but yeah, they can just watch it there.
I've seen clips and it's very charming. It's very charming.
Thank you.
Okay. And Rudy, thank you so much as always.
Yes, and if anybody wants to ask for any
Transportation advice.
transportation advice, because that's all what I'm good for. I'm good for nothing else. It's Salo Rudy at Twitter.
Okay. And I'm at G Dolske
Oh, you remembered it.
on Twitter. This time I remember.
It was very good.
I took my vitamins.
It's good. It's very good. It's very good. I'm glad you did.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Erin Darling. Oh, fuck.
See, that's good comedy. That's very good comedy. You can't write that.